All right, folks, we are back with another edition of the Red and White Podcast. I'm your host, Evan, here with Will and special guest James Henderson from Inside Pack Sports. James is leading the Hates MJ fan club, right, and Will has beef with that, so ready, go. James, how you doing?
Good, man. How you guys doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing better after we scored 48 points, James. Why are you guys so upset?
I'm very happy. I'll take it. I don't care. Like, somehow all of a sudden me giving the coordinator props means I hate everybody, right? Like that's because that's essentially what I've been saying is we've seen stuff schemed up for the first time all year. We call for it every week. We get it, and we're mad that we got it, I guess. I mean, because that's what I saw. I saw guys schemed up, easy opportunities, and give them credit. You know, I mean, one of the things I asked Dave last week going into this game, you know, like what changes had you made? Were there other changes? And you guys saw it on the depth chart. There were other positional changes, but it was clear they went in and said we have to get KC X amount of touches. We have to get Trent Penix touches. And they did that, and you saw what comes from that. But I don't necessarily feel that's me knocking MJ Morris.
I'll be honest. Yeah, my folks listen to your post-game pod as they usually do, and the takeaway was like, damn, dude, why don't they like MJ? Why do they, it was a lot of Brennan Armstrong talk. Like, Brennan could have done this. Why didn't they give Brennan this chance?
Well, but I think that's an argument we were making when Brennan was the quarterback. You guys were saying it. Where's the easy stuff? Yeah. Where's the schemed up opportunities? And then you go and change quarterbacks, and it's all of a sudden you see it. And so the question becomes, yeah, that is a question you want to make, because it's not you can eliminate the name Armstrong if you want to. Guys were 6 games into the season. Why not just say, why didn't we do this the first 5 games of the season? Like, it's not about the quarterback to me. It's about why you didn't make it easier for who you had at quarterback. And I guess the argument for maybe why it seems we're knocking MJ is if you strip away the schemed up stuff, the rest wasn't really pretty. If we're being honest about this specific game, just this game, not what he did in the past, just this game. If you take away the 7 pop passes to Gray and Conception, the schemed up stuff to Trent Penix. I mean, come on, Evan, I know you got a pretty good arm. You can make that pass to Trent, right? It was 10 yards down the field. You can throw that. Again, I'm not saying that to knock him. I'm just saying if you strip that away, I'll give you a stat that maybe give a better idea of this. PFF had in this game NC State with 1 contested catch in this game. Like opportunity. Mm-hmm. They were 0 for 1. 1 contested catch opportunity. On the season, they were at 25. So that tells you in the other 5 games, there were 25 contested catch throws in those games versus 1 in this one.
Yeah, but the last game, right, you had Dave saying that we had, KC was open like 13 times. Right? And so there were plenty of other uncontested opportunities that Brendan, for whatever, never saw. And I would say, Trent Penix was schemed open on that first one, right? But the second pass where MJ gets smashed in the pocket, right?
Same play.
He delivers that throw. Same, basically. But here's the thing, right? We just saw Brennan, anytime he was getting pressure like that, he would fold.
So you guys haven't seen Armstrong make a pass while getting hit this year?
Well, hey, you're right. I saw his last pass when he got hit, and that was an interception.
Exactly.
I saw him overthrow Keon Lassane in the red zone for an interception.
I saw him 3rd and 9 get crushed, hit Bradley Rosner across the middle on a contested catch. I saw him 3rd and 14 at Virginia get hit, get crushed, hit KC coming across the field. And again, I'm not saying that support Armstrong. I'm saying both guys do it. It's not a one or the other thing.
That's my thing, though, right? Is here's the thing: did they not call these plays because of Brennan? That's the thing. Is the question should have been for. I wish you guys would have asked it. Right? Would have been.
They've answered.
Okay, hey man, offense. No, offense looked a lot different, right? Why didn't we see these kind of calls for Brennan?
Dave answered. Dave already answered that question. He said that when you're going to a quarterback with less experience, you have to make things simpler for them. I don't think they didn't give it to Brennan because they didn't think he could do what MJ just did. I mean, guys, we're sitting here saying he threw 7 pop passes.
Sorry, Mom.
Yeah, you guys do it. My fault. This is not one of those. You guys do it. But I mean, like, you don't think Brennan could have completed 7 pop passes? Seriously, like
at this point in time? Oh yeah, can you do the pop passes?
Yeah.
Sure. My problem is I think there was no confidence in him throwing downfield anymore. I think he has lost confidence in himself, and I think just the whole program looked just like it had no confidence in him. And I think there was like that's the thing is maybe they should ask themselves, why did we make it so complicated for Brennan? Because after a couple games, they should have said, boy, this guy doesn't quite see the field the way we thought he might.
I mean, I've never told you guys I think Brennan Armstrong's a great quarterback. If you find somewhere where I've said in this system, he's been great. And all of a sudden, when I say MJ Morris was really good in this system, that's a knock on Morris. It's not a knock. But my point is, if you strip away the easy schemed up stuff and look at simply what he was asked to do, when you take away what it was 6 of 16 in dropbacks, 3 interceptions.
Yeah.
I mean, when you take away the simple stuff, what he didn't throw interceptions.
Oh,
First of all, hold on.
Do not get me started on these INTs, but
yeah, let's go over the INTs. Like,
hang on.
Let's go over it.
No,
because I do not remember the excuses being made in prior games for interceptions. So I'd love to hear these excuses. That's all. Let me hear them.
No.
Well, oddly. Hold on, Evan wants to.
I've got to make a caveat. Okay. James saying, let's take away the easy stuff is equivalent of James saying, well, UConn doesn't count now. Right? Do we not count UConn anymore?
I'm not saying let's take away the easy stuff. The easy stuff counts. But I'm saying when you evaluate his performance in this game, I think Duke's going to be enough of a challenge to where I don't think they're going to let KC get 7 pop passes. 6 of his 8 catches were behind the line of scrimmage. I don't think Duke's going to allow that. So what I'm saying is what we were doing on our podcast is we were looking at it big picture moving forward. If you're saying that stuff can't continue at that rate, what did he show in this game that's going to give you hope moving forward that he'll be able to do something different against better teams? Now again, I also said on the podcast this was his first game. I expect MJ to be a lot better. I said that. I'm not down on Morris. But if you just look at this game and you take away the easy shit, his numbers weren't great.
Yeah,
that's it.
I would say this offense scored 48 points with him not having a stellar performance.
Agree.
Right.
When I was told they could never score 48 points. We were told this would not happen with Robert and I, and it possibly wouldn't happen.
Hey, this is the first. Isn't this the first time all season they broke the 31-point scoring that they needed? Right. I can't remember with VMI. Do we have a pick six? We had 2 or 3 pick sixes in that one, right?
Yeah.
But even Dave doesn't count VMI.
Yeah, we don't count VMI.
Week, right? He was like, that doesn't count.
Forget that game. I'm pretty soon you're not going to count Marshall. I would imagine I'll give you another way to look at it. Like if you guys had the same game and Armstrong was the quarterback, if you want to just keep discussing MJ versus Brennan, how would you be viewing Brennan coming out of this game? Would you say what?
Negatively.
Okay.
Negatively because because here's the thing, right? With Brennan, the argument for him is he's got 4 or 5 years of experience. And so if you look at this game performance, if Brennan put up similar numbers, you see him regressing from UConn to Notre Dame, little bounce back with VMI, right? But then looked pretty average, mediocre against UVA, average, mediocre, or worse versus UL. And then you play this performance, and if he did the same thing, you'd be saying, well, we've seen a negative trend with this guy, and there's a problem here, And I think that's the thing is there is so much data on Brennan Armstrong that even what you'd call like a okay season, which I'd say last year was for him. I think he had 21 touchdowns and 10 or 12 turnovers. He wasn't even giving us really that type of performance. I think they threw it up on the screen at one point when he came in the game. He was 5 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and then 1 on the ground or something. So my thing is if he put up these numbers, you'd say, well, we still got a problem. And I think the thing with MJ is you have to factor in, right, he missed a lot of time with that injury. I don't know how much of spring ball he really got to play before the OC came in. And then, who knows how many snaps he was really getting in camp. So, to me, I thought it was fine because I saw a lot of upside with him again, right? I thought the downfield balls were relatively good. I think he clearly has that connection with Timmons still. And, I know you guys say it was an easy pass, but the pass to KC, that 20-yard route, right? I think it's a simple thing, but he hit him in stride, and he hit guys in stride a lot in the game when he did it. So I think, I think it's just not fair to be like, well, if we give Brennan the same performance, how do we feel? I think you have enough data at that point to say this guy is not going to get it done going forward.
Right, and we were simply evaluating the game, in terms of how they – so if you would say, Brennan, it wasn't a good performance for Brennan, then you could say it wasn't a good performance for MJ. And
I think it was an acceptable performance. And I think the thing is, but here's the challenge too, right? I don't know how Brennan would have responded if he threw that pick six, for example. Because I
don't think he would have thrown it. I think at the moment it was a bad snap, he would have tucked it and ran it.
Oh, yeah.
That's the other thing. That's the part on that throw I put on MJ is, and again, that's inexperience. That's where I'm willing to give him a pass. I'm not talking about the throw. On a tunnel screen, the moment the snap's off, the timing's off. So he has to have in his mind, coaching. Tuck it and run it. But instead he throws it, it's blown up,
Right. Yeah, McMahon, bad snap, right? But here's the problem. Porter Rooks doesn't I've seen amputees with better blocking.
Yeah,
that was crazy.
But
I don't know what was going on through his mind, which is probably thinking I only have to hold this block for about a second, right? And it's maybe a second and a half, right? And just lets the guy go by. That's the kind of stuff where that whole play was a fail. And to your point, right? Maybe if he's getting snaps all season, that play doesn't happen because he has that experience, right? Just everything went wrong on that one, right? So, I'm not going to blame him other than, I wish he had held the ball, sure. But 3 other fail points on that play, in my opinion. The one with KC, I think we were saying earlier, or I was trying to say earlier, right? You saw a similar interception at the Notre Dame game with KC, right? Where he tipped the ball up and it got picked off, right? So that stuff happens. I put a lot more blame on
although the one in Notre Dame was kind of right here.
It was worse, I thought.
What do you mean worse?
Right?
On KC,
the one at Notre Dame. The one at Notre Dame, wasn't it in front of him or was it behind him?
It was right in stride. I thought he was. If it was a 3rd and 20 and he caught it kind of 2 yards short.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that one was actually worse at Notre Dame. But my thing is you get a hand on it. I don't know. I default to blaming a wide receiver there, but shit happens. I think the other thing, too, that's kind of missed is I was rewatching the game right before this, right? There were a lot of very poorly timed penalties that put us in 3rd and long with MJ, right? So there was some difficulty, and I think he was being asked to make some probably more difficult passes in those situations, and, only a couple of those, I think, got converted. So, overall, my thing is you look at that game, I look and say there's upside here, there's clearly upside here. I think what threw me off at the beginning of the week was Phillip saying, questioning why there's a cult around MJ. And I would say if you look from a fan's perspective, right, well, here's the thing, right? If you look from the fan's perspective and I say, well, last year this guy came in the second half and saved the VT game, or maybe he came in right before the half.
I think he's played the second drive and they rotated and then they did.
Yeah, they were rotating back and forth. And then all of a sudden it clicked, right? And we win that game. Then he goes in and beats number 21 at the time, Wake Forest, right? They were 6-2 going into that game. Wins that one. And then he gets 2 touchdowns in BC before he injures his knee on that 4th and 1. And then we all know how that game ends. And then he comes in and leads to 48 points with this team. Do you think it's really that crazy for fans to be like, I really like what this guy has done with little or no experience. And I think there's a lot of upside given how he just came in and played. He wasn't the starter last year. So I just think it makes sense that fans would be like, I'd rather see the guy that we recruited that's come in, that's won 2 ACC games, and clearly has, the spirit of the team behind him. They definitely look different when he's in the game. That last game, when they were, not helping Brendan Armstrong up off the ground.
Peyton seemed to like Brendan.
I think Peyton's defending Brennan. Everyone says that Peyton looked pretty damn pissed when Brennan threw that interception at UL.
Well, Peyton.
So, but he's doing his job as a captain, right? The booing is ridiculous, right? So I'm glad he came out and defended that kid. And I think it is insane because here's the thing. He's going to come in for short yardage packages. Like, he is going to be involved in that. Now whether what they did for him this game was smart, that could easily be stated. But I think it makes sense that the fan base is behind MJ because, honestly, he's given a spark in a real shit scenario last year. And now he's coming in when people are really down, and he led to a lot of points. And, like, I just think it makes sense.
To me, I think, at least for me, when I say the cult following, it's not like not being high on MJ. It is what seems to be the willingness to gloss over the negatives and kind of try and only look at positives in each situation. When if you're being objective, that's not like I want MJ Morris to succeed. I don't know if people think that's not true, but I do. But I'm still also going to tell you, like, you go and watch our walkthroughs or I look back at the games with Brennan. Go listen to what Philip was saying about Brennan every week. He has to be better. He has to be better. He's doing this wrong. He's doing that wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's no different in this game. We're going to judge him based on – and so when he says cult following, it's like this – he can't do no wrong. Like, he throws a pick six and he comes back on the field and folks are chanting his name. Like, are they chanting – he's like, think about it. He throws a pick six, he comes back out and folks are chanting his name.
I think – that they're behind the young guy and they don't expect. Here's the thing: like, I don't think people are like MJ's going to come in and throw 400 yards, 5 touchdowns in this opening game. So they're sitting there behind him chanting him. Now, if I remember, I thought they were chanting because of the fourth down, the short goal line perspective. But here's the thing: like, they like him because he's scored a lot, and quite frankly, like. He
scored a lot. He scored a lot this game. I mean, Virginia. If we really look at it objectively,
no. I'm saying his 3.5 games. He's got 12. I just want like 11 passing ones.
Right, because we can't run the ball with him in the game. So what I'm saying is, Virginia. I'm just saying, Virginia Tech, you scored 22. Wake, you did score 30 against a really bad Wake defense. BC, you scored 21. It's not a lot of points. I mean, but you're right. He individually is scoring touchdowns.
But the scores against VT were basically in one half, right?
Well, he played the first half. I mean, he earned he
he played, but it's hard. I mean, look, that quarterback shuffle game, like, that's never a good sign. By the way,
just
like,
you guys remind your listeners of that the next time we're told Dave's stubborn. He gave Jack Chambers all of 4 quarters before he went to a new guy. So just saying.
Yeah, but you see it.
Yeah, just saying.
I mean, but I think we all saw it, right, with the Syracuse game, right? Like, he gave him.
I think if MJ completes that bomb, he stays in that game. Yeah, he came in.
They brought MJ in on the third play.
Again, like, he's not stubborn.
I know.
He wanted MJ to be the guy.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is, like, I just think, in that game, man, if we go back and look at
it. If he doesn't throw the ball into the sidelines.
Just ride with him.
If he doesn't throw the ball into the sidelines on that bomb and just completes that pass, they probably keep him in the game the rest of the way.
Oh, probably. Yeah, probably, for sure. And then we probably blow VT out, and everyone is like, we got the quarterback of the future.
I hope he is. Like, my problem with – I don't want to say my problem. I guess for me, sometimes you hear stuff that you can't talk about relative to certain kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it subliminally, kind of impacts your opinion on the situation. And there are some things relative to MJ's previous injury, transfer portal situation, that all rub me in a sense the wrong way. So this narrative of he's a NC State, I'm not saying he's not, just rumors and things you hear. This narrative of him being an NC State guy, all about NC State, sometimes you hear stuff that maybe changes your thought process on that. And and so and I'm not saying that stuff's true. I'm saying because you may hear some things like that, I don't weigh or factor that stuff in at all. Like, I don't care if it's a transfer portal guy. I don't care if it's a guy who you signed out of high school. That doesn't matter to me. Just somebody play well. I don't care.
That's
I don't care.
That's what I would say is when he's been given snaps, he's played relatively well. And the thing is, like, it makes sense to bring in Brennan Armstrong from the portal. This kid's coming off injury. You got his old OC. Like, I don't see anything wrong with bringing in Brennan Armstrong. But I think from the get-go, it did not look like the Brennan Armstrong we were hoping for, nor did it look like the scheme we were expecting.
I mean, run the scheme.
And so, well, that's the thing, right? It's like, for whatever reason, they decided to do more of a a drive extending ground and pound, grinder type offense again, instead of being explosive. And that's the thing is, one game, right, versus Marshall, but there were a lot of explosive plays. And things just looked kind of smooth when you let him stay in the game, after he settled down after that first quarter.
Yeah, it was really feast or famine. You had 6 3-and-outs, you had the 3 turnovers, and it was weird because they were all like early. Like everybody's looking at the defense, what did they have? Like 9? They had 12 drives that ended in 2 plays or less, or 3 plays or less.
Yeah.
State did.
Yeah, I thought that was a good point.
So, it was very feast or famine. And I don't know how much of that I think can continue. When you start playing a Duke or a Clemson or a Miami, can you find a good mixture there of some explosives, but you're going to have to be better from a down-to-down situation. And that's when we're talking about it objectively. It's not a knock like on MJ as a player or anything like that. It's what we saw from that game. And I think that's kind of what surprised us is folks just want us to come out and say what exactly? That we thought everything was great because State scored 48 points? No, it wasn't. Everything wasn't great just because you put up 48 points because the question is how you got to 48. Is that sustainable each week?
Yeah. So, but here's the thing, right? It's feast and famine, like you're saying, right? But the defense throughout the season, UConn 14, VMI 7, right? UVA 21, and Louisville 10. That feast or famine approach would have worked in those games. Let's say it's only 24 points, right? You win all those games still.
100%.
So I think that's the thing is like people are saying, can this be replicated? My thing is it doesn't have to be replicated all the time, but it has to have that threat of being replicated. And that's the thing is that just like with Armstrong, for whatever reason, this explosive upside just really wasn't there. And so I think it's logical to expect MJ's going to have some games where he puts up a lot of points, and there's going to be some games where you just grind it out to 24, but he's got that upside. That's what I felt like you guys were missing when you go back and look at what he's capable of, is when he hits, he's hit.
I guess for me, like, I haven't seen the upside to that degree. Like, because in this game, what I saw was schemed up stuff that I believe if you call those plays for other quarterbacks, right or wrong, they can make those plays. Like, I didn't see. I'm trying to think of a good example. Like, I hate using this. I'll give you an example.
Like, a backup walk-on quarterback can make these plays.
I'm not saying a backup walk-on quarterback. I mean,
that's what Alex was saying, right? Ethan Rhodes. Wait, who's Ethan Rhodes? That's not Ethan from the podcast.
No. Brennan Armstrong's thrown for 11,000 yards. I think a guy who's thrown for 11,000 yards in the ACC can do it. That's all I'm saying. Now, but I'll give you an example of where I mean. I'll give you an example of where I mean by two completely different quarterbacks. I hate using this guy as an example because people say I love him, but you go watch Drake May play every week.
He's kind of good.
Yeah, he's very, very fucking good. Like, you can run whatever system you want. You can call whatever play you want. He's going to make a damn play. You don't have to go out there and hand the ball to somebody 7 times and call it a pass. Now, can we get away from doing that and run a traditional offense and be as similar as successful? That's my question.
Do we need to, though? That's the question.
I don't know.
Like, I mean, I'm fine manufacturing.
I want to manufacture, right? I don't think it's a knock.
No. But like, I thought Alex made a really good point, right? On those pop passes, somehow KC is cutting in between the tackles better than our running backs do from a natural running back position. So, right? So, I mean, I'd be curious to see. I didn't go back and watch the. I don't know. Did they play ODU last week? Whoever Marshall played, someone put up a ton.
ODU, they popped a bunch of long. I think they rushed for like 344 against them.
So I'm sure they saw some stuff on tape and were like, "Hey, we can take advantage of that." But I mean, that's the thing is like, I think the biggest issue a lot of people have had with the offense this season is there wasn't that effort to get these guys touches.
Exactly.
Julian Gray, they let Julian Gray run it a few, and like the thing is like at some point he's going to pop one. I don't know if Jalen Coit's ever going to get in, right? But he's clearly explosive as a punt returner now. So, I don't know. The thing that really threw me off coming out of that game or out of the press conference on Monday was Dave once again saying, we got to get Keon.
Ridiculous.
The ball. Like, I don't get – I wish my wife looked at me the way Dave
ridiculous.
Looks at Keon.
I mean, what do you have on him, son? But did you guys hear in the in-game broadcast after Penix made a play they made a comment of Anai saying he's done playing possum with Penix. Did you guys hear that?
Mm-mm.
So he was talking to the commentators. They were talking about their in-game discussion with Anai during the week. And he said, we're tired of playing possum with Penix. It's time to really utilize these tight ends. That's the stuff we're talking about when we're saying, why are you waiting to week 6 for this? It has nothing to do with the quarterbacks. This is not about Brennan Armstrong or MJ Morris. And me saying they're scheming stuff up is a positive. We can't talk for 9 months about we're glad we got Anai because he features these guys and gets these guys touches. And then all of a sudden when he does it, we're mad about it. I'm not mad about it. I'm happy he's doing that. I'm just saying I'm not using that to evaluate what the quarterback did because that's QB-friendly stuff. You know, that's all I'm saying. So when you say that and it's taken as like you don't like MJ, it's like, no, it has nothing to do with MJ. Now, if you strip that away and it's 6 for 16 on the traditional stuff, yeah, that's not a good thing.
The IPS pod came off very almost condescending, you know, and that's what I think spurred the conversation, is that it comes off as MJ, you know, Brendan Armstrong could have done these things. Well, Brendan Armstrong had 5 games and didn't do anything.
Yeah, didn't get any of those things.
Or not. And his ball control was, or his ability to protect the ball was not there, and his decision making was not there. Like, at least you can look to MJ and say he was more decisive on, you know, on those Penix throws, on those maybe they are.
They were all one. Right? They were all one read throws. They were all one read. Like it's very. You know, I give you an example. Jack Plummer for Louisville, 2nd and 19. One of the. I guarantee if you ask Tony Gibson, he'd love to have this play back. 2nd and 19. State goes cover 0. And they give him a one read, get to your foot, throw a jump ball, 50-50 ball. Their guy makes the play. Shaheem Battle doesn't drop it off. That's not like that's not a rocket science read. That's not exactly
right.
I don't want to give a quarterback who I don't think can play that type of read. I want to make him read the field. I want to make him go through regressions. Like that's my point.
Yeah, but that's my whole thing. Is like I think sometimes OCs get stuck in this thought process of, well, my quarterback is experienced, therefore I need to give him more to do. Instead of being like, you know what, he was pretty damn good just doing the basics. So why not just give him the basics?
I agree. They should have been giving whoever the quarterback is, I don't care who the quarterback is, from week 1, give him the basics. Give him the basics. That's all I'm saying. It doesn't have to be Brennan or MJ. I don't care. Week 1, give him easy stuff. You run a system to make your quarterback look better. Everybody's not Drake May or Caleb Williams or whoever you think's this next Trevor Lawrence, whoever you thinks this next trend, ideal quarterback. Everybody's not that. Brendan Armstrong was never that. But in this system, he has shown he could be really good. And they were not running that system the first 5 weeks. That's all I was saying. And it doesn't have to do with MJ.
I would say if they really want to like just replicate what they did at UVA, like you can bring Brendan Armstrong, but make him that Keon Thompson, that number 99 or whatever, the quote unquote football player. Like, because that's the thing. Is like I think Brendan Armstrong is closer to that as a quarterback than MJ. Like I just don't think Brendan is a incredibly accurate passer. I think he's a guy that when you give him those single reads and those deep balls, like I think he can throw those. Like I think he showed that with like Timmons in the UL game, right? Like just give him more opportunities to do that. UConn, they did that. Yeah, it's just I don't think they optimized his skill set at all.
Notre Dame. I mean, you take the 7 drops back against Notre Dame. You've got a 350-yard passing game on Notre Dame's defense. I'll take that after what they've been doing.
Yeah, but for whatever reason, I think that's the broader question is why did you not simplify things for Brendan Armstrong? What things have been different? Or did it not matter because, frankly, the interior was letting guys blitz and hit him like 10 times a game?
And that's the whole deal of what I'm trying to figure out what NC State was looking to do, right? Because there's multiple ways you can look at it. You can say State woke up and said, hey, we should be getting Kevin Concepcion X amount of touches a game. Trent Penix, like did Trent Penix have a catch the previous 3 games? I don't know. But all of a sudden, you see them scheme up 3 wide open plays for him when you haven't done that literally all year. You schemed it up. What? So did they go into last week when they said we're making a quarterback change? Let's reevaluate everything. Let's try and get these guys X amount of touches. Did they do that, or did they say we're making it too hard on our quarterback? We're going to an inexperienced quarterback. Let's simplify this a little bit to fit this quarterback. Because that's what we were watching on Saturday. For the first time all year, it felt like State was running a simplified offense for the quarterback. I don't care who the quarterback is. I'm just saying the offense itself.
Yeah. I think they hit the easy button, and I think you should always hit the easy button.
And as long as you can.
Football.
Now, again, my concern is going against better defenses. Are you going to be able to run the football without the QB run game element? Are they going to allow you to just hand the ball off X amount of times to your receivers and that be as State had 196 yards after the catch in this game. I think MJ finished with 268, 275. I don't have the numbers in front of me.
Something like that.
So basically, he finished with 265 total yards, 196 yards after the catch. So that's basically 69 yards of air yards. Like against better teams who can tackle better, they're not going to allow you to get 196 yards after the catch.
Well, first off, make sure they can do that, right? How many times have we seen inferior teams run and pass all over this vaunted, NC State defense, right? Like, all you have to do is throw the ball up, and a guy has to slip or be a step off, and all of a sudden you either got PI, a deep ball, or a touchdown, right? Like, it's not that hard in today's game to beat good defenses. You just have to, like I said, just take the easy button and hit it. The thing is I think the argument you guys were making the other night was, okay, like Duke's going to press up on these guys. How's he going to look then? And my argument would be, well, Brennan Armstrong also looks like he struggles when the guys were pressing up. Like sometimes it's hard to beat press coverage, but like I don't think Brennan's extra 50 or 60 yards on the ground is really changing anything in that situation. And so I guess what I'm taking away is, first off, let's see if you can hit the easy button. 2, does his passing ability, which I think is better than Armstrong's, free up some stuff in the run game itself, right? Like, I know everyone wants to say Marshall was undersized and all that stuff, but that was definitely the best running performance we had seen all season, right? The holes were there. The guys were actually hitting them for the most part. Mims all of a sudden looked like he could, jump sideways.
I mean, you rushed for 136 yards against Marshall. Like, that's the thing that worries me. And where you're right, the 50 to 60 yards may not mean anything. Where it means things at is being able to sustain drives. Like, can you do things to – like, how many times did we see NC State at the quarterback position? I'm not going to say Armstrong's name because that means I'm supporting Armstrong for some reason. But just what you were getting at the quarterback position. How many times did you see on 3rd and 4, nothing be there, and you pick up 6 and you stay on the field?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, but I also
can he do that? Yeah, exactly. Can he do that?
But now, I mean, that's my thing is what I was trying to kind of highlight earlier, right, is there were a bunch of 3rd and longs because of false starts, holding, things like that really sent them off schedule. That whatever the quarterback is, it's going to be a challenge. But my thing is just do things to make things easy. And if MJ scores a bunch of points and we win a bunch of games this season because we kept making things easy, I would suggest you keep making things easy. It's totally fine. I often wonder if the complexity comes from a Brennan or a Leary or someone like that saying, well, it's my final year here, or I want to get drafted, so I got to show that I can do these things. Maybe that goes into the discussion points, right? Because I just don't understand why, to your point, you could have ran this offense all season. We probably have at least one more win.
Yeah, I mean, like you should have beat Louisville if you run this. I mean, like you can't throw one freaking seam pass to Trent Penix. You score 20 points, you win the game. Like what are we doing here? But
I don't understand why they would say that about Trent Penix. That's such a weird.
Say which one?
It's ridiculous. Playing possum.
Yeah,
they're like we're hiding his ability.
And you waited 6 games for this. Like that's the stuff that bought it. And people, I guess, are taking that as a we're saying. That's a negative. I don't know how for Armstrong. It has nothing to do with Armstrong. It's the offense.
Yeah.
Like I don't care who the quarterback is. Get Trent Penix the ball. Like
maybe the comment there was I wonder if their thought process is, well, we really want Trent for the ACC part of the schedule.
Like, I mean, it may be. I mean,
and we know this dude only has 2 or 3 games in him.
I mean, Trent had 3 catches for 99 yards in this game. He averaged air yards with 7 yards per attempt. From a tight end.
It's what we expected.
Yes,
yeah, it's what we thought we were getting last year, this year, right? Like, make that guy happen. And just hit it as long as you can. That's my thing is Trent Penix will get injured at some point.
I mean, the question becomes, like, for me, when I agree with you, make it as easy as you can for as long as you can. But there's going to be times where your quarterback's going to have to be able to make plays. Like, make plays. And when I watch this game back, and I've already done it again for this freaking thing that takes forever for me to write up. I hate doing it because it takes forever. Like, you I didn't see a lot of just true playmaking. Now, again, first start. He's a sophomore. He's going to get better. I think this is a QB-friendly system. I'm not telling you I think M.J. Morris is going to fail. I think M.J. Morris should be good because if you look at Robert Anae's track record, has he had a bad quarterback? I mean, for the most part, no, unless it's been just somebody who's not a ACC-level quarterback or
He's elevated Perkins.
Yes.
He's elevated
Armstrong. Jared Schrader, and now you've got MJ Morris.
Which is another reason I think people are like, well, why wouldn't you want to get behind? Why wouldn't you think MJ has upside, right? You just saw those three, I don't know, I'd call them pretty basic guys. They're runners first.
Right, that's the word, and that's the difference.
Second, right?
And I do not think MJ's a runner. That, like, if you're saying upside, to me, that's where there is a difference in the perceived upside. I think in the college game, offenses really benefit with mobility at the quarterback position. I don't view MJ as a runner. He looked very awkward on that one scramble he had where he slid and it did not look comfortable. He's not a guy.
He's a baseball player. But he slid last year and looked fine.
He's not a guy though that I think you want to run QB. Like even when they call QB draws, he didn't look comfortable running it. And so I think that's knocking his upside to a degree for me. Is he doesn't have the same mobility. But I'm not like letting that be a knock on him. I think maybe we should have, to what Evan's talking about relative to our podcast, maybe we should have approached it more big picture versus we felt like we were looking at what State was doing in Marshall, how he performed against Marshall, and also asking why they didn't do the same things the previous 5 games.
Yeah.
And because you guys agreed, they didn't. Did that look like anything we saw the first 5 games of the season?
No. But I would say that podcast, for whatever reason, came across as we've got to really temper expectations here.
Well, yeah.
Instead of, I mean, I just think that was a crazy start to that game. And like you said, those 3 interceptions early in possessions, the short field that we kept giving them, not just on those plays, but with the kickoffs, like there was a lot of weird happening. And what I thought was great is he looked pretty poised throughout the whole thing. Didn't look super down. Kept coming back. Came out there a couple times, like they scored. We scored almost, I think, either the next play or the series after that. So, like, to me, I just saw a young quarterback who's been thrown in halfway through the season twice now and looks pretty competent. And I think there's plenty to like going forward because I think a lot of those mistakes were easily fixed. And I do think there's more that you can get off the easy button with these guys. They get KC open a lot. They're able to get Timmons open a lot. If you play Anthony Smith, you might have even more deep ball threats.
They're not doing that.
I know. They'll never give my guy a chance.
He's your guy too. See, Evan, we agree on something. Like, I mean, what are we doing here? I told Anthony, Anthony, get a flag on special teams so they know you're still on the team. Like when you go out there on punt coverage, just like, take a penalty or something. Say, I'm still here. You can play me.
Tell me having a rotation of Michael Allen at running back, Anthony Smith, Timmons, KC, and either Trent Penix or Ross. Tell me that's not a big play threat in 3 or 4 spots.
It should be, man. I don't. We're not as smart as some of those. I'm not as smart as some of those guys.
Deep balls are tough to catch all the time. Deep balls are tough to catch. I don't understand why we hold Anthony Smith to some higher standard than Keon Lassane, who ain't catching many balls himself.
Yeah, I just. But that, again, goes in line with what we've been seeing all year. We're not making things easy on your quarterback. We haven't been. And again, I hope this continues again for MJ. My worry is we come out against Duke and it's back to what we saw the first 5 games of the season. Hey, go win this with your arm. Go make full field progression reads. Let's run QB run game. Let's not scheme anybody open. That's my worry. And that's not a knock on MJ. My question then becomes, though, can he win that way? Can he win that way?
Well, he can win that way more than Brennan Armstrong can win tucking and running at every, after one read and running.
The thing I disagree on with the Brennan Armstrong taking, like him only being a runner, is I don't understand how you're a top 10 passer all time in the ACC, and the only thing you can possibly do is run the football. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, that's what he's doing now. I mean, that's what we're seeing now. Right?
Because we just talked about the same system. Like we were saying that they didn't play this way the first 5 games. You guys agree with me on that,
right?
right? Like,
yeah, right. They simplified.
Yeah,
it,
but
why
I
did
almost
they simplify it for him. I don't know why they didn't simplify it for him. And they asked him to do different things, and he wasn't doing the simple things that they asked him to do either. So I think that's the disconnect here. It's not like the offense changed. I mean, the offense changed, but it's not like it changed just because it's MJ. It changed because it wasn't working, even with Brennan Armstrong. And so
So I guess the argument,
they had to figure it out. They had to.
The question would have been, like, again, I don't care if it was Brennan. I want to be running an easy offense week 1 where you could possibly be 6-0 instead of 4-2.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
You should be.
You should have been 5-1 without running a simple offense with Brendan Armstrong. I mean, you guys agree, right? You should have beat Louisville.
Yeah.
If you just
could have. Brennan didn't.
Well, I mean,
Brennan didn't help you in that game. That's part of the problem.
That's what I keep coming back to is, did Brennan demonstrate that he can hit the easy button as well?
No.
Because that's the thing. Is like I was thinking back just now, right? Remember when we had I can't remember if it was through the auction or whatever, but some people got to go to one of those scrimmages. And wasn't the comment like, well, you need to expect like 2 or 3 or 4 interceptions, right? And it's like,
yeah, I mean, we literally just had 3 in a game. Like, I expect interceptions to happen when you're throwing the football. Like,
I know, but it doesn't sound like they were like, well, were they kind of freak interceptions or not? Like, my thing is like, I don't think he ever came in and was the Brennan from 2021. I just think I still think the 22 season.
I'd take the 2020 season.
And then our offense. Well, that's the thing. Is like I would take it too, but that's what I'm saying is I think those first 2 years they're relatively good, and then whatever happened last year.
Yeah, what happened last year is you saw Clemson's offense. I mean, they run.
I know, right? And but that's the thing, and so that's what I was trying to get to it. Right? Is we're talking about Duke. Is Duke really that good? Or did Duke play really bad Clemson offense and get the Sam Hartman interception game? I'm told
Sam Hartman is good. But look, man, I mean, like I just saw Ohio State score 17 against Notre Dame. I saw Duke score 14, and somehow we cried for 2 weeks because State scored 24. I don't know.
That's the thing.
I'm neither here nor there. I mean, we Sam Hartman's great. Ohio State's great. They score less points. We're mad. Let me figure it out.
Everyone wants to talk about Riley Leonard, but I mean, look at his stats this season.
Hey, Riley is not Brennan Armstrong. He's Riley Leonard.
But that's the thing is like when you win and you know.
Yeah, when you win, we don't care.
But here's the thing is right. I think the expectations for Duke. Yeah, they had 9 wins last year, but go look at who they beat. It was the optimal schedule for Mike Elko to walk into. I think if you have low expectations for Duke and then they beat Clemson and then they nearly beat Notre Dame, that has like a different vibe to it than, well, we've got pretty good to high expectations for Brennan, and each game it's getting worse and worse and worse from a stats perspective. So, I don't know. I just don't – they never set him up to win.
I said after the game –
why not?
I said after the game, go to MJ. Like it was time to go to MJ Morris after the Louisville game. I don't think we were never. Hopefully, and maybe it came across that we thought Brennan should still be the quarterback. Nope, we were not saying that. I don't feel that way. It was simply, why did it take till week 6 to get what we expected to see week 1?
Well, I thought,
regardless of the quarterback, like Trent Penix getting schemed up, a receiver getting schemed open. Like, we didn't see that the first 5 weeks of the seasons. And so it was more a talk of the system versus the quarterback deal. And yet it was like the numbers were being used as justification for MJ Morris. Like, he scored 48 points because of the system and the amount of easy stuff that was created with it. Like, I hope it continues. I hope we can go to Duke and KC goes 8 for 102. And 6 of those passes be handoffs. I just don't know if that can continue.
I don't. I mean, here's the thing. I think it's still, you got to go back and look at it, right? Those 2 games without McMahon and just how bad that interior line looked. Maybe they just didn't think they could do any. Like, do you really want to be throwing pop passes when the interior is getting exploded every game, right? Like, I think there may have been some thought there.
That was another change that helped out Saturday. It wasn't just MJ. You had the 2 touchdown runs you got up the middle. That helps out, too. Yeah. I mean, like, it wasn't just the quarterback change that made State all of a sudden score 48 points. There were multiple factors to it, multiple layers to it. And I think pointing that out shouldn't be taken as we don't believe in MJ Morris. Like, I think MJ has the ability to be a really good quarterback. I just think it's going to take some time, and I hope State continues to make it easy for him, man. I mean, I really do. I'm worried that we're going to see they go back to Trent Penix not playing and us seeing Jacarius Peak playing tight end.
No. I think they'll try to keep it simple, right? Because they're, at least for a few games, in the end, I thought they were going to ideally get to the bye week, and then they were going to make a change. I think after UL they had no choice and they had to play him at this point. But my guess is this wasn't even ideal from their perspective as far as getting him in. But damn, I had a good point. Now I lost it. I'm sure it'll come back.
Well, how do y'all feel about Duke? How do y'all feel? I mean, are you confident now after this performance?
Yeah. I just don't think Duke's that special. I mean, listening to Dave talk about how thick their defensive line is and how thick their running back is, I don't know what to expect. I mean, I would prefer our defense over a guy who has a garbage time snaps for Duke versus MJ going against their defense. Like, I'm surprised it's actually just 2 or 3 point favorites for them still. Like, that was kind of surprising to me. I want to say they opened 3.5. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a good, and I thought you made a great point, right? Like, at least when they bring Brennan Armstrong in at Duke for those short yardage situations, no one's going to boo him.
I mean, man, and honestly, I don't care. I don't even have to see Brendan Armstrong again. Figure it out. What to me, it's frustrating. You feel like you got to bring him in. Like, you can't run something without bringing him in to get a run game going.
The next drive, they were inside the 20 and they scored with I think it was just a handoff, and they just spread the field out and it was an easy run, right?
Hand the ball off, or your quarterback run it or throw it. I mean, you shouldn't have to play separate deals. Like, figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to bring Brennan in for the butt push, and if you want to let him sit in shotgun and make a read and run, just nothing about those plays screamed we're setting Brennan Armstrong. We
talked about that one in the walkthrough last night, and that was Philip was like, I think this was the first or second play I've charted where we go to a full progression read. And it's like, you bring Armstrong in and you bring him in, you play action, he turns his back to the field, and you've got, they were running, I think he called it pylons, where you had 2 guys crossing going to the pylon. So he's reading flat, pylon, other pylon, and then coming back to Mims as his 4th progression. It's like, why are you bringing him in and the very first thing you give him is a 4 progression read? Just go QB counter or go QB draw or hand the ball off.
It made no sense. Because you know what? If he scores there, right, fan base isn't going to boo him, right? They're going to be like, okay, well, we know what this means.
They're probably mad he scored because then State may go back to him for some reason.
I mean, that's the thing. Is I don't care. Dude, hit the easy button. That's my thing, right? That was not the easy button for Brennan.
No.
Brennan, they've given him so much easier options in the red zone so far. And of course, the second they do I'm sure Robert was thinking, I'm setting this up. I'm setting this play action up here. And then, of course, the blocking, they get, 3 guys and 2 hats on him again. And he gets, and to your point, why are you making this guy who's shell-shocked a little bit have to go 1, 2, 3, 4? It's not his ability.
Well, we're relying on DeMarcus Jones to block for us. So,
God, again, that's what I was going to say earlier that I forgot I don't. It seems like multiple years now where it's like this obsession with this dedication to veteran players and playing these guys. Giving Jones time, giving Keon time, even though I think we all agree that Keon's in the wrong position. I don't think they're setting him up for success either. But for whatever reason, it's just this staff just loves giving guys more run than they need to when you've got young guys behind them that are explosive.
Well,
that just seems what it is every year. It's we don't want to play the young guy. He can't be trusted. But the other guy doesn't do anything.
Well, hopefully they learned.
DeMarcus Jones.
I mean, you're Jordan Houston. I was told all off season, it's his time. Can somebody explain what the hell that means? You've had 5 years. That's enough time. It's enough time.
I think the staff always sees the positive greener pasture for these guys. Oh, Jordan just didn't get enough reps. Oh, Keon just doesn't get enough touches, right? DeMarcus, whatever. I don't know. He probably just is great in practice, and they're like, we know he can do something, and then every time in the game, it's like a 50-50. Either he does it great or he looks like a walk-on. So I just don't. I just wish they would kind of just say, it's time to just trust the better players. Like I felt like Bailey Hockman got more run than he needed to the COVID year, because I think Dave just loved his story. Like remember the VT game? Like why was Bailey Hockman the starter in that Virginia Tech game? We lost that because of him, right? He had 3 picks. He looked terrible. You bring in Leary, boom, 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 touchdown.
Wake Forest, man. He won the Wake game. We like these Wake wins.
He almost lost it with a pick 6.
We like these. We just said we like these Wake Forest wins, man. He had 45 on Wake.
I'm still convinced that Tim McKay got that short shrift at FSU because Dave was like, what's a great story? Bailey Hockman coming back to Florida State, and he's going to come in, and he's a gamer, and we're going to just let him take it. I don't know. I think these guys really like their players and just can't be ice cold at times and tell them, hey, you're just going to have to sit. I'm sorry.
Well, this notion, like I said, this whole stubborn deal, I mean, you bring up McKay. I mean, that was the opposite. He played one road game against West Virginia. State scored, I think, 27 points, and it's time to change quarterbacks. His first road. Please give MJ a longer leash. I don't want to be going to Lex Thomas if he goes to Duke and you only score 24 points. Because there's not this whole stubborn notion makes no sense to me. In fact, I think in that scenario he's not patient enough. He wasn't patient enough with McKay. If you were going to pull him after his first road start, you might as well never should have started him. Like, let's be honest, you shouldn't have started. And
I swear to God, I feel like if that game had not been FSU, if that had been Georgia Tech, Miami, whoever, anyone else, he would not have put Hockman in there. I really think he was like, he's going to get that spark. He's back where he used to play. And he kind of played okay. I remember that game.
The thing that if that's the case, folks need to realize this isn't a movie.
Well,
right?
I was just
this isn't
I said Dave Doran loves Tom Rinaldi, those Tom Rinaldi spots, because I think he's just a sucker for that kind of thing.
This isn't a movie.
And everyone should go back and watch that West Virginia game. You know what the problem was? The defense could not stop West Virginia,
anybody.
And all West Virginia did was like run tempo.
Yeah,
they didn't. There was nothing special they were doing. They're just like, hey, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna snap it with 5 seconds. And that's the thing too, is like we haven't seen that really aside from like the first drive of the UConn game.
No tempo.
We ran with tempo, right? And we just blitzed down the field. And then all of a sudden it just was like, oh well, I guess we can do that whenever we want.
Yeah, but we never wanted to.
And they were like, we got to protect this defense.
That to me is the old argument I have with State right there, is this notion you need to protect your defense, or the thought of it. Again, that's the other thing when you look at what Anai had done previously. Tempo was a big deal.
Yeah.
Tempo was a big deal. You're helping your quarterback out. You're subbing less. You can't run tempo if you're subbing every play. You can't.
I was going to say, sometimes, like with Syracuse, he wouldn't run fast, but he wouldn't change out either.
Right.
So we would hold them out there and wait and see if they would make a mistake and sub in, and then you'd see him all of a sudden option out and go to something.
And there's none of that.
And so... yeah, it's just, and I just don't know if that's a trust thing or what. Like, now, I mean, at the same time, like, are you protecting your defense by doing those pooch kicks? Like,
no.
Was Marshall's return man like some huge threat?
No.
I did not hear anything about this guy. And then in the conference, or in the conference call, he goes, "Well, we didn't want him to get the ball."
Well, and also they were treating it as a onside kick. So they were saying that there were these huge gaps in their coverage that they were trying to drop the ball in, see if they could recover it. Which again is the opposite of conservative. You're actually doing that with the lead and giving them the ball at the 40 if you don't get it. But
yeah, I mean, I like random aggression. That's fine. But then he did it twice, and you're like, okay, now what? Why are you doing this? And the thing is, like, if you're really afraid of a returner, just kick it out of bounds. Put it on the 35 instead of the 25. That's a 10-yard return.
Right.
I don't understand that. I don't know. Again, we make things complicated, but that game, I just do wonder if I need to go back and look, like, after those pooch kicks. Did they get any points off of those drives?
I don't think so. I think they held.
They probably pushed us back. I don't know. It's just stuff like that where I'm like, what are we doing? That's not the easy button. So,
but do you feel good about Duke, man? You tell me what you guys think.
Yeah.
How do y'all feel?
Well, Evan can't tell you because he's on a work call.
Oh, there you go.
I've been staring at him, and he did say like at 12 he was going to have to take a call. But I I just think it's gonna be a grinder of a game. I think we'll put up like 24, 28. Like you have to trust our defense versus a unknown young quarterback, right?
Well, that should be the positive for State. Is you got thrown kind of a bone here with this Leonard injury. Like, I would not be optimistic at all if Leonard was healthy. And I know Duke kind of likes his backup, but again, it's his first start, first extended action. I would not want that against NC State's defense. I think
you know what Tony's going to do.
Yeah, I think State's going to find a way to generate some plays defensively to where maybe you can help your offense out. But I do think Duke's defense is legit. I watched the Notre Dame game; they're legit, and it's a litmus test for me. Like, this is what I want to see. This is the environment I want to see Morris in, because if he is the guy we think he is, and he's your long-term answer, because that's the biggest reason I wanted to see State make this move. It wasn't about what he would do this year versus Brennan. I think they're about the same. Whatever. You're banking your future on this guy. Like, if you would have redshirted him, how would you have handled the quarterback position going into next year? Would you have just given him the deal without knowing what he could give you? You'd have been looking at 2 games, right? You'd have been having to wait 2 games. So for me, the biggest positive to this change is we should know at the end of this season what we have with MJ Morris. Is he your starter?
You can retain him.
Yeah. And then the question becomes,
if you want to.
Yeah, then the question becomes, does he go into the portal, whatever. But you're still going to know definitively as a player what you have. And so I'm excited about this matchup for him, because if he's going to be the guy you're looking at to be your quarterback for the next 3 years, he's going to have to be in these types of situations, in these types of spots. Everything's not going to be Virginia Tech at home, Boston College at home, Wake Forest at home, Marshall at home. Like, you need these tough opportunities. So he gets a good chance with Leonard being out. You would have to say going into this game, who are you taking at the quarterback position? Harry Bellin or MJ Morris? All right, you're taking MJ Morris.
Yeah. I think what it comes down to is, was Duke good because they were able to leverage ball control, type drives with Riley Leonard, and
his running ability. His other kid can't run.
Yeah, like what if we get him into, like we just had, right, a ton of possessions? I'm really curious to see. Like, that Clemson game was a freak performance, right? With
they should have won it.
The turnovers and things like that. Like, that's hard to sustain, and I just don't think they've really played anyone that's really stressing them, right? They got UConn, but they didn't get the UConn we got. Like,
they got Sam Hartman, man. Sam Hartman.
Man, that Notre Dame game. If we show a pulse of offense those first 3 drives, right? Like, that looked like the best. Well, Notre Dame looked rattled, and then they got the lightning break, and then they came out, and then all hell broke loose.
I think the argument you make for the Notre Dame game is don't give up 45 points. Like, because the truth is, for Louisville, for Duke, for Ohio State, 24, which is what State scored, would have been enough.
Yeah.
So you look at the defense in the Notre Dame. I know we don't want to do that. We for some reason we can't ever possibly, ever hold, question NC State's defense. Like, heaven forbid. It's kind of like my guy Stephen A. Smith, and I'm a big LeBron. I don't know if you ever see his spiel. He always goes on with LeBron James, where he's like, look, heaven forbid I say LeBron James is the second best player ever behind Michael Jordan. Like, how dare I say something that blasphemous, right? It's like, I can't possibly question NC State's defense here, but don't give up 45 to Notre Dame.
Here's what I would suggest. I know it's like the opposite of Gibson's nature, but maybe on the first drive, sit back a little bit, wait and see what the kid can kind of do, because they're going to scheme up for super aggressive Gibson. These, they've had
these one read throws, these get to your back foot, throw it.
They're going to because it's been the bye week, and that's what they're going to do. So if I was Gibson, I would feign the pressure and then drop it off for the first few plays, because I'm sure they've got nothing really to bank on with what they've got tape wise on this kid. And I don't know, it just reminds me of like the Miami game and others, like where you just see him be like, I'm just going to go blitz like every play, and I'm going to isolate these receivers on our DBs, and I'm going to trust them. And then you had Tyler Van Dyke be like, I guess I'm just going to carve you up and just throw jump balls. Like, so I just hope we sit back a little bit. If we do that, I think things will go well.
I'm risk averse, man. Like, I get the pressure and I like the pressure, but I don't know. I feel like sometimes as fans we think pressure's harder for a quarterback. But I think a lot of times drop 8's harder for a quarterback, especially if I don't think the quarterback's good.
Well, look at what they did to Brendan with it.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's why he was struggling, right? Everyone was sitting back.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see, teams do it more. Like we watched Jack Plummer the other night. I talked about this in the Louisville game. Go look at what he did versus drop 8 versus pressure, where you let him get to his back foot and he just throws a jump ball up. Like, you learned that in high school. But being able to read the field and see and go through progressions, I want to see if teams do that with MJ. Are they going to try and muddy it up and put more people in coverage? He hasn't seen. I think the first interception, or not the first, the third one was that. There was a lot more coverage, and he got batted, but that ball wasn't. That player wasn't open anyways. I mean, he shouldn't have thrown that.
He was trying to go to Vereen. I do wonder. It's so hard to watch from that tape, from that angle. Is that just sailing harmlessly into the secondary, or is that getting picked no matter what? But yeah, I mean they definitely did something different there. But yeah, I mean that's my thing is can you find a way? Here's I know you say you don't think he's as mobile as Brennan, but I think he's practically as mobile. I bet if you put him straight line, they're about the same. It's the question of, is he going to lower his shoulder and bash someone the way Brennan does, right, versus slide?
Yeah, I mean, there's two different things between being able to scramble some and be an efficient scrambler, and you actually run offense for your quarterback. Like NC State had packages in their offense for Armstrong as a runner. I don't know if they're going to have that for Morris. That's the difference there. But yeah, I think he should be able to still scramble and pick some stuff up. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful it works. And like I said, Duke's going to be a great test for him. I mean, because to me, I want nothing else than we're sitting here Sunday and NC State wins this game 31-17 or 31-20, and Morris looks, and it doesn't even have to be great. I would take 220 and 2 touchdowns, just a solid.
I just want to win.
Yeah. You win, and you get a solid, good performance from him to where you can have confidence moving forward against these other teams. Because we talked a lot about Marshall's defense coming in this game, but let's be real. I mean, they played Albany, East Carolina, Old Dominion, and Virginia Tech, right?
Yeah, I think they cleaned up on bad offenses, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like what we do. I mean, we do the same thing.
No doubt.
And I mean, here's the thing. They looked, I know everyone wants to say they're undersized, but they looked well coached, and they looked like a team that was used to winning. They didn't look like they were freaking out whatsoever as we were scoring. It's just, I think that's a better team. I think that's a better team than UConn was last year, even though UConn, when UConn got to 6-6. So I thought that was a really good out of conference type game, and quite frankly, we played Virginia Tech this year, right? I think they were the equivalent of a lower tier ACC team.
Yeah, I mean, they beat Virginia Tech. State should be able to win that game. I'm really, it bothers me that I think folks take that pod that way, because I like MJ as a player. I do.
Yeah.
It's just we were literally looking at it more what we saw from him in that game, and it was more kind of I think it's just surprised, hey, they schemed up a ton of crap in this game that they haven't done all year, and it worked. And if you take that away, he wasn't really good, but I'm fine with that because, again, first start, hadn't played football in a year. He's going to get better moving forward. We did see flashes last year. All of those things are positives for him. There's not really a ton of doubt in my mind that Morris is going to be good. I think he's going to be good. It's just, is he going to be good enough to help you win a lot of games? Frankly, is he going to be good enough to still be here next year?
Well, that's the thing too. Is everyone. I don't know why you guys act like we're the most broke NIL.
It's not about it to me.
I know what you're. I know where you're going with that, right? But I think if you let him get the run, man, he'd have to be really good this year for someone from the SEC to try to come and get him again. Mm-hmm. Like a legit program, right? I think part of the problem wasn't it Auburn that made a run at him.
Yeah, they talked to him a little bit. I think the deal. So from what I had heard on MJ, and again, all this stuff is behind the scenes, so who knows if it's true. But I had heard he was wanting a starting offer, and I think even that more so than the than
from us or from the other teams?
Other teams. Like if he could have got a starting offer from an SEC team, you could have seen him go in the portal. But I think what happened was, he didn't get that, and he decided to stay, and State was able to kind of make it work from the NIL standpoint. Like I think that's more of the deal. I mean, he's a Georgia kid.
Yeah.
It's
got to be factored in.
Yeah, he's a Georgia kid who I assume, he probably would not mind playing in the SEC. I don't know if he's going to, but I'm with you. Like, is he going to do enough to where that can happen? That's the question.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, is, right, I am not going to blame a quarterback looking around at the receivers that we were trotting out there the last several years and say, well, they should just stick around if we're not committed to getting explosive players on the field to help them. So, I think there's some factor there. So, you've got a good class coming in that's going to be young guys. Hopefully you can retain KC and Timmons and these guys. And I think if State goes, hey, man, we're going to go out and get really aggressive in the portal, and we're going to get help on the offensive line, and we're going to get help at wide receiver and running back. Just say, hey, we're committed to putting every piece of talent around you we can. I think it would be easier to keep him, but State's got to show the willingness to do that, right? Like, they can't go in there and be like, well, we're going to get a sixth-man offensive lineman. We're going to go get a Dakari Collins that we're just, not going to trust. I don't think they've done anything there to – I don't know. Would Leary still be here if we were like, hey, we're going to be aggressive and go target all these guys to put around you? I don't know. I'm not saying I want Leary here.
Yeah, I think Devin's deal was always the system and the opportunity being presented to him. I don't think he thought was good enough, which, he leaves to go.
Don't you think he'd be ripping it up in an I system, though?
I do, but he goes to Kentucky and plays in, for basically
that's the worst.
Yeah, I don't.
That was the worst choice. I don't know what he was thinking.
Yeah, I think that was the problem with him was is he benefiting enough from being at NC State? And that's where I think it is with MJ. And that's why I don't worry about it, because you're right. Within this era of NIL and 1 year transfer portal, you don't know what these guys are going to do. That's why I didn't care about ever redshirting MJ. It's who cares? Why would you worry about a red shirt? The guy might not be here next year, may not be here in 2 years. I use this as a statement all the time. Like my buddy Bryant, my partner, we would always go into these back and forths about Demi Sumo not redshirting his freshman year. It's why did he play special teams? And it's well, here we are, and he
threw some damn good blocks.
The red shirt doesn't matter to NC State anymore. He's at Kentucky now. And that's the whole point. Is just why would it have mattered for State if he? Now the counter to that is
Demi Sumo was always injured. That's what I was told. He was, the 1 year he got to play, he was always injured. James,
right. Well, and the counter to that would be we actually this morning we're talking about Savion Jackson and how he played very little. He played sparingly as a true freshman in 19, and now he doesn't have that extra year that a C.J. Clark has who redshirted that year, right? That's
his injury didn't happen at the right time.
Yeah, and that's the right. And that's the argument is, the redshirt deal. But I'd
rather get guys for 4 years than hope I get them for 5 and I didn't get to play them for one of those. It's just, I don't think State has that luxury. I think State should try to get the most out of every guy they possibly can. And to your point, there's no telling how many guys are going to transfer their junior or senior year now. And if they pop off and they're going to get some incredible offer from somewhere. And frankly, I don't blame a guy if he's played for somewhere for 3 or 4 years and wants to be well, hey, I'd like to go play at Alabama if I get that opportunity, or Texas or wherever. So I think it is what it is. My thing is just you have to obviously there's been a change in recruiting, I think this season and last season. It seems like we are all of a sudden, now that NIL is allowed, we are getting some of these better playmakers. And I do think, a Paylor and these guys are going to change things going forward for us. But I just cannot stand the commitment to older guys just because they've been here. I just don't get it. And I think that's what's always going to be a holdback is I think Dave's kind of sentimental with certain guys, especially with Keon. I just wish you guys would ask, like, hey, why is Keon not an inside guy versus?
I've tried that.
I know. I think if you ask it, he's going to be like, fuck you, James. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's just like, but it's like, well, why is he getting 33 routes? What's going on here?
If he was getting 33 routes and it was from flexi or rare, like that's the thing is like I just don't I'd love to know what he does at outside receiver that the other guys like Anthony Smith can do far more on a route than Keon can.
Yeah, I mean like
maybe that's the question. Can you guys just ask, hey, are we ever going to see Ant Smith again?
I will ask about Anthony next week.
Because that's a cult hero.
I will ask about my man. My man, like I he's my guy. I'll ask about him next week. I don't get. Like I said, he's on punt return, punt coverage. Just tackle somebody. Get your name set in the stadium to where maybe Joker's like, oh wait, Anthony's still here. Hey Anthony, come on. Wait, there you go. Come in. Let's get in the game.
That guy with the 4.3 40.
Right.
Yeah, should I play that guy? He's always 6 feet by the defender. Like,
I mean, I don't advocate penalties often, but go out there, get a roughing the kicker or something. Just let them know you're still on the roster, man.
I mean, that's my thing. Is like you've got him, you've got Chris Scott Jr., you've got Baldwin, and a couple of the other Crabtree. Like these guys are just taking up scholarships if you're not going to play them, and especially when one of the guys actually has like an elite skill set in one factor. Like if he catches 25% of the balls thrown at him, that's probably 40 yards. Are you getting 40 yards right now out of one catch from Keon? No.
I mean,
like that's my thing. Is like just play the numbers. I just want to see it. Just one time, give me Timmons, Smith, KC, and Penix. I guarantee there's going to be an explosive play.
I mean that, but it's too,
or at least two guys wide open.
It's too smart. It's too smart.
Are you calling our coaches dumb, James?
Don't come in here.
Hey, I'm being told I never criticize the coaches. I'm a shield for the coaches. I constantly question things these guys do. Constantly. I mean, I don't agree with you don't think I do? I don't agree with a lot of what they do.
No. I was going to say, James, why don't you burn all your sources and relationships? Let me know how that goes for your platform.
I mean, I think I know folks don't believe me when I say this, man, but like there's been very few times where I haven't said something because I'm worried about a source. Like honestly, because like a lot of times what we're discussing is often enough common sense to where we should be talking about it, right? Like it's not. Evan's right. Like, why can't we question why Anthony Smith's not playing? That if somebody wants to take that as a knock, well, damn it, like take it as a knock. That's a valid question. The guy, anytime he's on the field, creates separation. We spent 5 weeks arguing about nobody getting open, and you got the fastest player on the team sitting over there. Like that's a valid concern. Like if you don't agree.
And the thing is, it's like in the spring games and in certain games, like he's made difficult catches.
Yeah,
he's also dropped wide open catches. I get it. I'm sure that's super frustrating. But the dude is open every effing time.
I don't even care about drops. Like I don't. I'm at the point where if you give me upside, like Will, your word upside. If I feel like you've got upside, I'll live with a drop or two. I'll live with it because I know you're going to create some big. Like I don't need. Again, I don't want to offend any Keon the same family members that listen to your podcast.
They don't.
Okay. I don't want to offend anybody, but I don't care if you don't drop 5-yard hitches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, do you get what I'm saying? Like, you can catch all the 5-yard hitches you want. I don't care if you end the season with no drops. I want explosiveness, upside, verticality. You're seeing it some with Timmons now. KC gives you that element where he's just a dynamic guy, but the rest of them, come on. You got me you clapping on me?
Yeah, sorry.
I mean, get this. I mean, don't you think if you got Timmons and Smith in the game running deep verticals, isn't that going to open up something for Keon Lassane to make that intermediate route that he apparently is so good at running? Like, that's my thing. I just don't understand why you don't want to stress a team. And like the thing with Keon, when you play him out of position, it's like you're making him inefficient by default, and then you're giving him really low probability catches anyways, like fade routes and end zones and things like that. So I just don't understand. Like I think you asked earlier this season, or maybe you didn't ask him, but you were kind of speculating. Like, do we look at data? Do we look at analytics? Like, Shouldn't it be screaming to you you're doing something wrong?
They can't.
Like when you look at
as many times they punt in plus territory, they're looking at if they're looking at analytics, they're looking at something wrong, right?
And for me, it's like the targets per route run and different things like that. It's like if I'm putting a guy on the field, like you put Keon Lassane led NC State in targets in routes run against Marshall. I think 30 every route run, every passing play he was on the field. 33. Right?
Mm-hmm.
MJ threw it 33 times or something. 32, and he had a scramble. So I think we had 2 scrambles. So maybe one play he was off the field. He had 1 target. I mean, like, if you're commanding 1 target on 33 routes run, you're not getting open, or you're not doing enough for the quarterback to think he needs to throw you the ball.
Yeah.
You know, you compare that to Timmons. I think Timmons was 9 routes run, and he had 3 targets. I mean, just think about that. 9 routes run, they threw the ball 3 times.
Right.
So play that guy 33 times. Times that by the 33% target rate and see what you get. You know, like KC had 15 targets on 24 routes run. That's the analytical stuff we need to be looking at and saying, okay, these guys with higher – like that's one of the things I love about Anthony Smith. His ADOT's crazy high. His targets per route run's crazy high. When he's on the field, they throw him the ball because he's open.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is, like, I just keep wondering, like, are you saving this for something? I don't get it. Like,
apparently,
yeah,
they're playing possum.
But who's making that call? Like, right? Like, I mean, Dave has eyes. Like, if it's Joker or an eye, can he not just come in and be like, guys, I just want to see this guy run a route 10 times. Let's see what happens. Are we really? I mean, I hate to just keep piling on Keon Lassane. Is his blocking just so elite that you can't take him off the field and put in a guy who can run a 40-yard route in 4 seconds?
No.
Why?
I don't.
What happens if you put Anthony Smith in motion and let him run on? Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you could get that kid the ball or find ways to make someone think.
There has to be stuff going on behind the scenes. It can't. Like,
I mean, if there would, yeah,
it can't be all football related.
Tying this back to MJ and Brennan Armstrong conversation, I think that's part of the problem that most of us saw is that Brennan Armstrong seemed to just lean on Keon, and maybe that's the way it was called. Maybe that's how he defaulted. He wasn't getting the ball to the guys that made plays, right? I mean, not consistently enough. You had a game where Concepcion had 1 catch, I think it was, and you're like, and that's the difference between the 2 quarterbacks, or at least what they're doing offensively with the 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah,
is you're getting the ball, like, you know, we talked about it already, manufacturing touches for him. Brennan seemed to always key on Keon and just lean on him, and you're like, that's not your best way for success, right? Get it to figure out how to get that ball to Julian Gray's hand. Figure out how to get it to Concepcion's hand.
I think it's his
catch
and
I think it's the adjustment you make when you say, let's take the progression element out of this. Like, that's what you saw this last game. Like, if you want to really, like, simplify it, State basically said, MJ, we're going to tell you who to throw the ball to. We're going to tell you who to give the ball to. Yeah, 100% agree.
Yeah,
right. Like that was in the first 5 games. If you're going through progressions, maybe that's leading you to Keon more. Maybe that's leading you to someone, whatever. But this last game, it was on this play. Hey, we're running this seam pass to Trent Penix. Fake the bubble. You've got Penix up the seam. That's your one read. That's your throw. Hey, we're running this pop pass to KC. Like, there's no read in that. You just give it to him.
Yeah.
Well, they're setting it up.
Do that every week.
Yeah, they set it up too. That the first pass to KC across the middle, and maybe it was the bubble before that. Penix is running down the sideline wide open. He's right in front of me, and I'm like, oh, they're definitely setting that up for something. And the sure shit they did it 2 plays later, or the next series later, and Penix is wide open again. Like, they clearly they were stacking reads on it, right? We're going to throw this one to KC while Penix is doing this, and then they're building off of it. I don't know why they didn't do that before, why they didn't simplify it before. Maybe their expectations for Brendan Armstrong were too high or whatnot. But they were clearly leading MJ through all of this and saying, all right, you're going to go to this guy, and then next year you're going to go to this guy because he's going to be wide open. And it worked. And it's what you should be doing in college. I mean, that's essentially what Mike Leach and his simplified offense always was. It was like, we're building easy reads for your quarterback to stack these things on.
Yes.
And,
well, look at like Jalen Coit, right?
Yeah.
Like that UConn game, he had like 2 or 3 drops, but he was open. He was open. And so like, why not let these guys work through that? And I think that's the thing is like, I think Keon's in there because if you put the ball on him, he does catch it probably like 90% of the time. He's got really good hands. Problem is like Brennan couldn't put it on him very consistently. And the other reason is like I just don't think he gets very much separation, right? So like we're not scheming him open. But then you got Jalen Coit, who's just naturally separating himself. Like I'd rather see the guys that can naturally separate themselves and I will deal with the drops.
Yeah.
Versus the guy who has great hands but doesn't get the opportunity to really display those hands. Like I don't get it. I don't think we're, maybe that's what he's talking about when he says we got to get Keon more involved, is that they want them to scheme him open. But
he said it in his presser. He said we need to get Keon and the guys who have been here longer the ball. And I'm just like, no, you don't. I mean, that was his presser yesterday. And
Ant Smith's been there a long time.
Yeah, like I don't understand that philosophy at all, and I think it's impacting what you're seeing on the field from both quarterbacks, and it's a hamstring to the offense.
So let me ask you guys this before we get, I know we got to get rolling here in a minute, but like going into Duke, where are you concerned with this team?
It's still going to be sustaining drives, right? They're MJ's proven they can hit an explosive play. Are they going to be able to? Duke's defense is good enough that they'll probably take a lot of those away. So if you can't hit an explosive play, are you going to be able to sustain a drive? And I don't care who the quarterback is, we haven't shown that we've been able to do that all year, right? They just have not been able to drive down the field. Outside of the one series against UConn where they went tempo and they went do down the field like it was nothing, and then we haven't seen any of that since. Like, are you going to be able to sustain drive? That's my biggest concern. I'm not worried about Duke's offense. I think our defense matches up well with what they want to do. To me, it comes down offensively. Are you going to be able to sustain a drive? Are you going to keep getting the ball into the hands of the guys that can make plays, to KC's hands, to Julian Gray's hands, Michael Allen? Are you going to use them the right way? I think that's my concern, or what I'm watching.
I'd say my first concern is safety, with the injuries there, and then that having some miscommunications that allows Duke to get an early score or something like that and put the pressure on. So I'm concerned there in general, but I would say it's basically his first road start, right? Like, he only had 2 or 3 drives that he got to play at Syracuse.
So
MJ? Yeah, MJ.
Started at Virginia Tech, right?
That was home.
No, Virginia Tech was at home.
Oh.
Wake was at home. Oh. BC was at home. Syracuse was on the road, and he got
I don't even think he got a drive. I think he got a play. Like, did he get maybe a play? Or
I thought he had one.
He got one drive to 3. It was a 3 and out.
The drive that ended with that deep pass out of bounds where he hit like a tuba player. Yeah, so that's what I would see is I think frankly I don't know if it's just because it's mic'd up that way, but they sure make Duke look like an intimidating environment against Notre Dame and Clemson with the students, and people are actually showing up for once. So I think that's my storyline will be, how does he actually look on the road, and then can we build off of what we did, because I think there's still a lot to grow off of him there, and just keep hitting the easy button, and if it doesn't work, hit the medium button, and then if it doesn't work, bring in Brennan Armstrong because you're fucked anyways.
I don't want to go back to Brennan. I really don't want to go back to Brennan. Like, I think this is now the time to say, what do we have for next year? What do we have moving forward? Let's finish the season out, see what happens. I'm worried about the run game. Like, I don't know if you're going to have enough week to week on the ground to sustain drives to where you're really going to have to win it with throwing the football. Like,
is Raphael supposed to be back this week?
I haven't heard on him. I haven't heard. The way Dave talks, he's not. It doesn't sound like it. Okay.
I think, to your point, just having Mims and Allen, it's going to be difficult. If it, our offensive line is the biggest issue. That's why I was saying, if you're not going to play those wide receivers, then cut them off the roster and get transfer offensive linemen. I don't even care if they're from the Sun Belt. We always say Joe Selfo was a perfect example of you can get older dudes that maybe are size limited that can help you out. And so I think we're just going to keep suffering on the O-line in the run game in general until we get that fixed.
Let me ask you this, James, before we get out of here. How much of the change in offense, right, the simplification, the one read and go offense was because of the quarterbacks? How much is it because they realize our offensive line is trash and they can't block long enough to make through the progressions? Like, I started to think about this. We're talking about all that. Was it quarterback or was it offensive line that drove some of that change?
My hope is it was common sense, right? Like, yeah. My hope is literally, I hope they went into last week after Louisville, like, look, we scored 10 points. We've got to change something. So Dave says, okay, we're going with MJ. Fine. What else can we look to do? I hope it's not, we've got to do this because of MJ, right? Like, I hope that's not the reason they're doing it. I'm hoping that it was a knowledge of KC's not touching the ball enough every week. Trent Penix is not touching the ball enough every week. Let's get those guys more touches. And you should be able to, as a coach, scheme. Like, P and 10 is one of the things that Philip talks about a lot on our podcast, which he makes a great point about it. So P and 10 is basically the first play of every drive, right? Mm-hmm. And you think about it from this standpoint. You're sitting on the sidelines as an offensive coordinator. The defense is on the field. Your offense is on the field. Can you not come out of there with a great play call or a good play call on 1st and 10, right? Because you should be able to go to every position group. We're running this to start the drive. This is what you got to do. Make sure you do this. Be worried about this. All those things. Every drive. And it's like, you would think that going in and evaluating your team, it's simple to see, why is Trent not touching the ball more? It shouldn't be because we're going to MJ. Like, I hope that's why they didn't do it. Yeah. But you're right. It could be a reason. Maybe they're saying we're going to an inexperienced quarterback. We need to make this simpler for him. I don't view MJ that way. I don't view MJ as like you can't put more on his plate. I thought last year, you saw some of the charts Philip was putting up last week. I mean, he threw a lot of deep balls last year. State put more on his plate, I thought, last year. So I think he can handle it. My hope is they just said, we don't need to make it so hard on him. We don't need to make it as hard as we've been making things the first 5 weeks. Right? Like, it shouldn't have to be that difficult. You know, why are we playing Jacarius Peak at tight end? You know, like, what are we?
Great pass blocker.
What are we doing here? You know, again, Jacarius, play right tackle all you want. I mean, I'm all for it. But don't take Trent Penix off the field and don't, I mean, like, the guy's he has the ability to score from anywhere on the field at the tight end position. Use that to your advantage. It shouldn't be, we're going to MJ, all of a sudden we've got to scheme up Trent. I hope that wasn't the case. I think it's more, they talk a lot about going into bye week and self-scouting, right? Self-evaluating things you can tweak. I think they just had a mini bye week coming out. They're like, look, we're changing quarterbacks. What else can we change here? I think that's what
that's what we said.
Okay, yeah. I mean,
I think that's true because, right, the fact that Dave was like, I watched it 3 times and I had to bench him because of performance. I mean, I think there was probably a lot he's watching those three viewings and saying, like,
oh, it isn't just the quarterback.
Look at this problem.
Yeah. I mean, it's like Evan talked about it. The offensive line, help your offensive line out. Get the ball out quicker. Give your quarterback some quick throws, some easy reads to where you're taking some off of his plate. There's a lot to it. I mean, I love the fact you mentioned Mike Leach. Like, how many great quarterbacks has he really had? Now, statistically, he's had a lot of great ones.
Yeah.
But that's a system. All right? Like, those guys don't go on. Have any of them done anything at the next level? Like,
I mean, to that point, right, wasn't that what Dave said with bringing in an eye? Was like, I wanted to get that air raid element. I wanted to get the stuff that was like these. It had to drive him nuts when like a Texas Tech or someone like that stayed in a game with him where they had no right to be within any scoring points, and they were just like lob the ball up.
And it's a Jag quarterback, right? Like,
oh yeah.
And that was always my thing with Brennan. It was like, I would not have wanted Armstrong if you didn't have Robert Anae. Period. Yeah. Like, I felt Brennan was a system quarterback who has shown he could excel in that system. So pairing them together didn't. But if you wouldn't have had that system, I wouldn't have wanted Armstrong. Because I don't view Armstrong as this quarterback who is system proof, right? Like, I think he needs help, and so
I think that was everybody's hope everybody's hope is that bringing them two together will come back to 2021.
Yeah.
But the realization was that, hey, it's not working.
And you're not running what you're running in 21. So if that's the case, then don't stick with Armstrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Why did it not work at Virginia? They weren't running what he's ran.
Right.
The fact it looked like 2022 again was what was so perplexing coming into the UConn game. It was like, well, maybe we're holding things back. And then it kept happening, and you're like, well, is it the players? Do we not have guys that can run what UVA did?
No, you've got talented players. I mean,
that's the thing. Yeah, that's what was so weird for fans.
Yeah.
But there's no tempo. Like you guys mentioned the tempo. There's no tempo. There's too much players substituting. There's no scheming up players. I mean, like, if you take that stuff away from Brendan Armstrong, you don't have a quarterback good enough to win games for you.
Right. Agreed. All right, we'll leave it at that. I think the folks can finally understand that James does hate MJ, and he is a
MJ,
Brendan
man.
Armstrong stan. And,
I need to get MJ over here and do a little NIL
No, don't.
deal.
That's a kiss of death.
Nope.
That's a kiss of death.
Yeah, no.
Wow,
Every guy we give money to,
It's like the Madden curse.
they don't do anything.
I had Peyton over here.
Bradley
Look at the year he's having. Look at the year Peyton's having.
I'll allow it, but that's.
All right,
Hey, let me tell you guys this real quick. I said this on the message board, and I think it makes a lot. Imagine how good you are as Drake Thomas to overshadow Peyton Wilson. Think about that for a second.
Yeah.
Like,
legit.
that's crazy.
So somebody asked me this last night. I was on another podcast, and I'll ask this to you because I didn't really know how to answer it. And I put it on Twitter today. Where will Peyton Wilson rank all-time defensive players for you at NC State?
I mean, this is why you come back to school, man. Like, the legacy, you get put in these discussions. I mean, for me, I'm always going to go, like, I'm always partial to Mario because of how Mario did it in terms of come in high school early, true freshman, All-American, was only at State 3 years. He didn't redshirt, didn't play 4 seasons, and was dominant right away, set every record he could set at his position, all those things. The Peyton thing's different because of the ebbs and flows of his career, right? Like, he came in injured, had the breakout year, then he got injured, was overshadowed a little bit last year, and now he's having, like, the year you want to have when you make the decision he made. I mean, he's up there. At linebacker, I mean, you guys remember Tulloch, Nate Irving. I mean, he's in that mix, right? Like, I mean, Stephen Tulloch was a bad dude, man. Like,
yeah.
But Peyton's different. I mean, Peyton's a freak, dude. I mean, you could make an argument he's up there at linebacker, right? I mean, where would y'all put him? I don't know.
I have, just because, I don't know, maybe it was because he was when I was in school, but I always have Nate Irving just in front of him. But that was until this year. This year, if he keeps on at this pace, I mean, I got to probably knock him up a spot, but I think Mario is probably rightfully there. There's so many defensive linemen that you could take.
Mario, Bradley.
Just awesome. Yeah, even like guys like BJ Hill. Like, I always thought like the system hid how good he was. Because he's just sitting there occupying blockers and things like that. Like him and who was the other guy? I was just gonna say who was the guy that played defensive tackle right beside him? He was on the Chargers. Justin
Jones.
Yeah. Like, there's guys like that
Manny Lawson
on defense that were so good that no one really realized until afterwards. I mean, on offense, it's like the equivalent of like Tyler Jones. Like, that dude was so good at left tackle, and no one ever talks about him.
Peyton is now top 10 in tackles in NC State school history. He's at 334, and roughly
he has
about
to keep climbing
3 full seasons. Yeah, I mean,
what was Drake at? Isn't he ahead of him?
I don't know. I don't have that in front of me.
I thought you had the top 10.
It's not. Doesn't have him on here, and I don't know if that's older or not. Stephen Tulloch had 959 tackles. Like, that's unbelievable. That's unbelievable production. Mario's at 399. That's the next one that Peyton has to pass in order to.
Stephen Tulloch had how many?
900.
How is that possible?
In 159 games. Oh, wait, that's NFL. Sorry.
No, that's NFL. Okay, I was going to say, no
I was about to say, what the frick? I know he was good, but
okay, I'm looking at NC State's NFL production. Sorry, that's why.
Because he left early too. Now remember, he left a year early.
Yeah, he was really good. I
think Peyton's up there, man.
I'd put Peyton he's in my top 5 of defensive players, and he's definitely in my top 5 of NC State players that I like to watch.
Yeah, and you always with these things, you feel like you're forgetting the older group.
Yeah.
But in terms of modern era, State's had so many good ones that make a good. I think Bradley and Mario is it's hard to top those two. Defensive all time. But
all right, I know Will's got to go, and James, as always, I appreciate your time.
Yeah, man.
It's always a good conversation, and it's a lot of fun.
I just need to make sure Will still loves me, man. My guy, don't. I was like, Will, what do you want me to do? Lie? Just tell me. You want me to lie? I'll lie.
You said, you were like, you want me to lie to you? And I was like, I didn't even say that.
MJ
That's
was
not
awesome,
even the gist
man.
of what
I love. I didn't
say it. No, my whole thing was it's just you guys are ignoring the upside. I just thought, I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't remember how Philip phrased it, but it was it's not that he didn't say he wasn't anything special, but he was he's not Tom Brady or he's not an NFL quarterback. And I was like, I don't need that.
Yeah.
Neither is Brendan Armstrong, and I just think there's so much more upside there, and we're gonna finally see the true test, right? Duke's defense is legit. Clemson's gonna be a struggle. Miami is always gonna be a struggle for us with athletes. We're about to see what MJ really is.
And he may be great.
Yeah, or he could suck. I don't know.
Yeah.
But at least look, I appreciate him looking good against bad teams, right? We just weren't getting that from Brennan this season.
Yeah, there's something for that.
Is what it is.
I'm hopeful he comes out this week and he's great. And I'll take 20. I don't care how many pop passes I get. Just win the damn game.
There you go. Win the damn game.
I got to roll. All
right, folks, as always, thanks for listening.
Are we good?
Not yet.